Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. It is a beautiful Monday afternoon. A lot of drama going on in the NBA. A lot of good stuff going on in the NFL. You know, the finals are over. My Warriors are your 2022 NBA champions. I forgot to tell you that. I actually got the hat, by the way, and the t-shirt that the team wore in the locker room immediately after they won the title 11 days ago in Boston, Massachusetts. These have been a great 11 days. I'm not going to lie to you. But ever since the finals, and we do this every year, we go through sort of a slow period, right? We have the NBA draft, NBA free agencies coming up. I got a big story to start the show involving Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And then you got obviously some NFL news and this and that. Baseball's going on. My Red Sox are hot right now. I got my Red Sox hat behind me, a 7-game winning streak going. But this is kind of we call it the dead period in sports. But I think for the most part, we could all agree sports has gotten to be a 24/7, 365-day, nothing but drama. That's the beauty of this thing we call sports. But we got a lot to talk about today. Again, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving will lead the show off with the story that some things that have come in the news recently today about those two, as well as Gronk retiring last week. I don't think he's done, and I'll tell you why. I'll explain why later in the show. Some of the latest on Deshaun Watson. Russell Westbrook's getting into it with Skip Bayless or whoever it is, and Russ don't get it, man. I'll get to that. And at the end of the show, I've been looking forward to doing this. The playoffs are over, right? I took the last week off, enjoyed my vacation. Again, did the draft show with my man Mike Guido, my other man Barry Grant Jr., and had a great time. But my top 10 current players in the NBA. That's what we're going to do. So with that all said, with everything that's going on right now, let's kick it off with some Brooklyn Nets. A team that got swept in the first round. I said they would lose in the first round. I thought it'd be a 7-gamer against the Boston Celtics. It was about as over as quickly as it could possibly be. The two star players for the Nets, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, were awful. But some new information has come in involving Kyrie Irving. Looks like he doesn't want to be a Brooklyn Net anymore. According, last week, to Adrian Wojnarowski, Kyrie Irving has given the Nets a list of teams that if he were traded, if he opts into the last year of his current contract, then the 5 teams would be the Clippers and the Lakers and the 76ers and the Mavericks and the Miami Heat. Okay, so there's that. And then this came in today from Sam Amick of, I believe he's of The Athletic. Sam Amick says people very close to the situation believe that Kyrie Irving is trying to join the Lakers. LeBron James is said to be very open to the possibility. I'll get to that in a second. Woj also reported outside of the Lakers, again, I list the 5 teams Kyrie would like to go to if he were traded. Outside of the Lakers, there are currently no known teams planning a pursuit of a sign and trade for Kyrie Irving. Now, I'll get to that later in the show. I'll cover the whole Lakers issue in just a second. But here's what I will say. I'm going to actually start with the other guy, Kevin Durant. You guys know I'm a big Kevin Durant fan. I was a fan back to his days in Oklahoma City. I've said religiously on the show, he is the most gifted. I'm not even going to say the greatest. We can argue, is it Kareem, Michael, Kobe, LeBron? Who knows? But the most gifted scorer to ever play the game of basketball is Kevin Wayne Durant. He's the best I've ever seen do it because he can literally do anything that he wants on the offensive end of the floor. And he won 2 finals MVPs with my Golden State Warriors in 2017 and 18. Good guy, good teammate. You know, the guys in OKC loved him, guys in Golden State loved him, guys in Brooklyn loved him. He's great in the community. Love KD. With that said, this on him. Not the newest Kyrie issue, but the list of Kyrie issues, we knew that was going to be the case. Why? First of all, the first telltale sign, the man, after making his 3rd straight finals alongside of LeBron James, with LeBron still in his prime, having just averaged a triple-double in the finals against the greatest team ever assembled, the 2017 Warriors, Kyrie Irving said, nah, I'm the man. I'm going to go lead my own team. Gets traded to Boston, and they actually go further in the playoffs without him than with him. see the 2018 and then the 2019 playoffs to, back my evidence. But I've always said on this show, Kevin Durant leaving the Warriors, of course I did not want him to leave. Of course not. You think nobody in the Warriors organization wanted him to leave. Steph went to recruit him to try and bring him back. So did Bob Myers. Steve Kerr wanted him back. Draymond, for all the issues that he and KD had, they're still good buddies to this day. Clay called him the best player on the team. They all wanted KD back. But if KD had left the Warriors and gone to Boston or Miami or a Clippers culture that's looking better and better by the day, I get it, right? You got your 2 rings. You got that monkey off your back. Now you could say, I'm going to be the unequivocal leader of a championship team. I got no issue with that because I know KD's good enough to do that. But instead, he chose Kyrie Irving. He chooses Brooklyn. All of the Nets' greatest moments came back in Jersey when they made those 2 straight finals with Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson and all those guys. They ain't done nothing in Brooklyn. How many playoff series they won? 2? 3? They ain't done nothing in Brooklyn. And so KD, rather than going to another good culture, says, because Kyrie's my buddy, I'm going to go join a bad culture in Brooklyn, a team that struggles when it comes to drafting solid talent into the NBA, has made some horrendous trade deals in the past. See the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett deal, in which they gave draft picks to the Celtics, where Boston ended up getting Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Maybe you've heard of them. So we know this is a Nets franchise that doesn't exactly have a history of competing at the highest level. And so this whole issue, I'm hearing sympathy towards Kevin Durant in terms of the issues with Kyrie. I don't. Because he knew that Kyrie Irving was like this. He knew that ahead of time, and he chose him anyway. Now to Kyrie Irving, the center of this story again. So first of all, again, I mentioned the teams, the 5 teams that he would like to be traded to. Should he opt into the last year of his deal, and as time goes by, that seems increasingly likely. He's going to make in excess, I believe, of $40 million. Yeah, take the money. But again, I will reiterate the report. This is from Woj. Pretty accurate guy. Outside of the Lakers, there are currently no teams planning a pursuit of a sign and trade for Kyrie Irving. Mind you, Kyrie Irving in the last year of his deal, he's a 1-year rental. That's what the Celtics did. They got Kyrie Irving for 2 years. Didn't give up a ton to get him. They gave up a beat-up Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder. I think they gave up a center and like a draft pick. That was it. And the Cavs got Colin Sexton. Nice player, but, not a massive difference maker. Nobody even wants to do that because they know that the baggage that this guy comes with, except for the Lakers. Kind of like last year when nobody wanted Russell Westbrook except for the Lakers. Oh, I will repeat about this franchise that I said last year, and people thought I was crazy when they signed Westbrook. Traded for Westbrook. They went and got Melo, who did a decent job, but way past his prime when they went and got Trevor Ariza, DeAndre Jordan, Rajon Rondo, Kent Bazemore. Either old guys or guys who really aren't difference makers, Wayne Ellington. And everybody's like, oh, the Lakers are the favorites to come out of the West. I said, no. This is a very desperate franchise. It's what they've always been ever since Dr. Jerry Buss passed away in 2013. They gave Kobe, rest in peace, a massive contract that made it almost impossible for them to bring anybody else to help Kobe to compete in the final years of his career. They drafted really well. Julius Randle, D'Angelo Russell, Brandon Ingram, all guys who have been all-stars. They drafted good rotation players like Josh Hart and Kyle Kuzma. They didn't develop them, though. Those guys went elsewhere and succeeded. Josh Hart, But the other guys have left the organization and done pretty well for themselves. This is a franchise that once again is showing their desperation in that they have obviously a 37-year-old LeBron James, who I still believe at this stage in his career can lead a team to a championship. I do. The number one concern I have for LeBron at this stage is health. He only played 56 games last year. Your number two is Anthony Davis. Street clothes, as the great Charles Barkley called him. Pretty much sums it up. Had 1 year where he was committed and stayed healthy. When was that? A contract year with the Lakers. Balled out. Got a 4-month break before the bubble so he could stay healthy, but that's neither here nor there. Since he got that big contract, we heard the quote a couple weeks ago, hasn't touched a basketball since the season ended. Come on. And now you're going to bring Kyrie Irving. Look, I know Lakers fans have said, hey, anything but Russell Westbrook, and I get that. I told y'all from the beginning, this is going to be a disaster with Russell Westbrook. Told you from the beginning. Every team he goes to, they instantly get worse. His basketball IQ is atrocious, he's inefficient, and he's hard to play with. That played itself out. But you're going from problem to problem. You're going from 78 games of awful basketball, which Russell Westbrook played, to 29 games, which Kyrie Irving played last year, of nothing but drama. It is something constantly with this guy. Whether it's the vaccine, whether it's randomly taking 2 weeks off, and then they find you, in the club during a pandemic when you're taking time off in the middle of a season during a pandemic, mind you. Can't stay healthy. It is something with this guy. We don't need a coach. Darvin Ham isn't gonna take too kindly to that. So this is who the Lakers are. This is who they are. I don't get this notion that they're a well-run franchise. I keep trying to tell y'all, they are starting to become the Dallas Cowboys. They have become really, really insular over the past few years. Rob Pelinka, Kobe's agent, right? Obviously, Jeannie Buss is the daughter of the great Jerry Buss. Kurt, Linda Rambis, really? This is what we're doing now. They've given up too many draft picks. They gave guys money that they did not deserve. And now they're probably going to lose LeBron next year. Does LeBron go to the Warriors? I'd love it, but no, he's not going to the Warriors. But I could see him going back to Cleveland next year, join the young guns over there, Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. Team's got some talent now. Team's getting better quickly. I like where Cleveland's going for the first time in a long time. This is a desperate franchise. Trying to go acquire a player who's probably going to play barely over half the games for who knows what reason. And when it comes down to it, he's unreliable physically, gets hurt a lot, and emotionally. It is always something with this dude. Well, he'd be teaming up with LeBron again. First of all, Kyrie, if you haven't noticed, got a little more kooky in the past 5 years since he left Cleveland the first time. Secondly, LeBron, if you want to say he's in his prime, okay, but he's the back end of his prime, he's still great. I'm not disputing that at all. He's the second greatest player of all time in my view. But this is not the Cleveland Cavaliers of 2016 or 2017. This is Kyrie still thinks he's a one. Let's make that. Kyrie took KD to Brooklyn, not the other way around. It wasn't like KD went to Brooklyn and recruited Kyrie there. It was the other way around. Kyrie recruited Kevin. Kevin didn't really want to go to Brooklyn, but because he wanted to play with his buddy, and here we are today. So, no, look, if I said last year the Lakers should have went out and gotten Kyle Lowry. Solid point guard, right? Now, he's had some health issues, so that's the only issue with Kyle Lowry is that hamstring really got him in the postseason and hampered him a lot. He's getting up there in age, but you're talking about a guy who can control the tempo well, really good basketball IQ, can get pretty streaky from three-point range, got a good mid-range, can get to the rim, but you had to get Russ. Mr. Highlight play. Dude had like one highlight all year. It was when he dunked on Rudy Gobert. That was it. Like, and it's not like Russell Westbrook's changed it all. I mean, everybody's talking, oh my goodness, he's hitting the side of the backboard and he's airballing shots. It's like, no. Stan Van Gundy, the former coach, pointed this out on Twitter at the beginning of last season. He said, I don't know why people are so shocked. Russell's always been this way. But now he's in the turnovers too. Now when you're in the bright lights of LA, whole different ball game. They exposed Dwight Howard. They've exposed a lot of guys, and they did it to Russ. Let's see. John said, might have need to grow her hair back. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's coming back. The beard is coming back slowly but surely. Don't worry about it. It'll be back soon. This clean shaven look is not going to be one that y'all need to get used to. It's not. But when it's all said and done, and by the way, Brian Windhorst said today on NBA today on ESPN, he said the Nets are preparing to lose both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. So basically they're saying if we lose Kyrie, Kevin's gone. Because now they have no assets, in all likelihood, to go get Kevin a second star. I mean, you think Kevin Durant, after leaving Westbrook, is going to want to play with him again at this stage in his career? Kevin left Russ when he was an MVP candidate. Okay? But he saw what was coming. Russell's game was never going to age well. I said this years ago. Russell's game was never going to age well. Bad shooter, completely reliant on athleticism. His basketball IQ is awful. He's not good defensively. Like, I don't know why everybody's so shocked. The triple-double blinded too many people. It did. John said the Nets are in a bad spot. Sheesh. Yeah, they're in quicksand. Like, there's 3 teams right now, they're in quicksand, and 2 of them I've talked about. The Lakers, the Nets, and the 76ers. Like with Philadelphia, you've got your superstar MVP candidate in Joel Embiid, but then who's your second star? And you've lost all your assets because you traded for James Harden. He's up for a new deal. You know, reports are saying like a short term, like maybe like a 2-year deal. That'd be okay. But how much money you giving James Harden? I'm not even sure the way James is not taking care of his body. I'm not even sure if he's a 2 at this point. He's probably the 3rd best player on a championship team. But yeah, all 3 of those teams are in a really, really bad spot right now. And Brooklyn, they lose Kyrie, Kevin's gone. Because Kevin never wanted to go to Brooklyn to begin with. Now, Woj said today that the only 2 quote-unquote impossible destinations for Kevin Durant are the Knicks, because the Nets are not going to trade Kevin Durant right across the street. They're not going to do that. And Golden State. Now, I think there's a number of factors with that. I don't think my Warriors want to give up their young stars, given how they have the chance to develop and how they can extend this dynasty even further. But I'm just saying, look, if Kevin wants to join Golden State, I don't know how that would even be possible. But if he wanted to come back, hey, listen, door's always open, Sniper. Door is always open. You can always come back anytime. 35 is going to hang in the rafters one day. John says Kyrie opts in or goes to the Lakers for less. That's the only 2 options, I think. Yeah, I mean, that's really going to be, that's been the 2 reports, is that, you know, Kyrie opts in for one last year in Brooklyn and then probably leaves next year in free agency, or, you know, signs with the Lakers with the, you know, the mid-level exception. But I mean, I don't know. Kyrie's 31, 32 years old. He said he wanted to retire in his early 30s. Well, we're getting pretty close to that, which then again, it's coming from Kyrie, so you don't know if he's going to hold to anything. But I mean, at the end of the day, both teams are in quicksand because Brooklyn loses Kyrie, they're going to lose Kevin. Now they got nothing. Now they're back in the lottery, as opposed to with the Lakers. By the way, the Nets I don't think the Nets control any of their future draft picks for like the next 3-4 years. So they are in a world of hurt. They can't draft talent. They have no assets. They're stuck. Unless Ben Simmons can take them to a championship. Then maybe we can have a discussion. And then with the Lakers, kind of a similar situation. Most of their players from last season are free agents. LeBron's getting up there in age and getting hurt more. Anthony Davis, AD, I've always said AD stands for always down because he's getting hurt every 3rd game that he plays and misses 4 weeks. Westbrook, we know what he is, and they have no draft picks. So both teams are in a world of hurt right now. But given the upper management, can't say I'm shocked. Oh, man. NBA free agency, man. It never ceases to give us unbelievable storylines. And I believe free agency starts in 3 days. I think it starts June 30th. So that'd be Thursday. If that's the case, I'll probably do like an IG live or something, while some of these deals are coming down. Like at the end of the show, the end of this show, like go on IG live and break it down. But it's gonna be fun. I mean, listen, we got some note. We got the Bradley Beal story. I don't even have a chance to talk about that in today's show. The Bradley Beal situation's interesting. I don't think he's going back to Washington. I can't imagine why he would. He had a quote the other day saying like, he doesn't want to retire, look back on his career and be like, man, I never got the chance to play for a winner. So that's going to factor, no question about it. John Jones in the comments. He said, yep, we can do it together. Yes, sir. John, you're invited. Hey, listen. Wait, let's see. Okay, we got another, I guess, could you call this breaking news? Somewhat. According to Adam Schefter, Adrian Peterson and Le'Veon Bell have signed contracts for a heavyweight boxing exhibition on July the 30th at the Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles. So we're going to get Le'Veon or AP. I don't know. Y'all let me know in the comments. Who you taking, Le'Veon or AP? That's a tough one for me. I'm going AP. I'm going Adrian Peterson. One of the greatest running backs of all time. Le'Veon Bell could have easily been that, but man, he screwed himself over in Pittsburgh. Big time. Let's see. Yeah, John Jones got the get your popcorn ready. Yeah, John Jones taking AP. I'm taking AP. I'm taking AP over Le'Veon. Again, that's July 30th at the Crypto.com Arena. Maybe we can do like a I don't know, like a live show or something, but maybe we'll do a segment on that beforehand. Speaking of the NFL, a more serious topic in the NFL, y'all know where I'm going. Deshaun Watson. We've had a number of new reports that have come out, certainly over the last month and even over the last week or so. We had the huge report that came in. I believe Ian Rappaport was the first to put this out. I think it was either Ian Rappaport or Josina Anderson. Josina's been all over this. She's done a phenomenal job. But Deshaun has settled with 20 of the 24 women who filed civil cases against him for sexual misconduct. And so what that does, that's really interesting because Deshaun from the beginning said, I'm not in this for money. I'm in this to clear my name. Well, I'll leave that up for interpretation. But according now to the Wall Street Journal, this came in yesterday. The Wall Street Journal has reported that the NFL is looking to hand Watson a, quote, indefinite suspension while searching for a minimum of 1 year on the ban. Adam Schefter reports that Watson's hearing date is scheduled for tomorrow, June 28th, tomorrow. And we'll see what, transpires out of that. And this is why I said beforehand, the NFL had no choice. It's either 1 year, like I can't imagine them, even a 12-game suspension, which seems huge. It's a third of the season. But when you have an NFL season that is going to be crazy, we thought last season was nuts, and it was awesome. Like the last 7 playoff games were all phenomenal football games. They all came down like I think like 5 of the games were won on a walk-off, whether it be a field goal or a touchdown. And then you have the quarterback movement. We're going to have a phenomenal 2022 NFL season, knock on wood, everybody stays healthy. But then if you have this hanging over as the dark cloud over the 2022 season, given that the Browns, I think this factors too, the Browns are a pretty loaded football team, the NFL can't deal with this season. They can't. Not with the number of allegations, not with the New York Times report, which was, I think, for Deshaun, the dagger in terms of a 1-year suspension, where the New York Times reported that he reached out to 66 massage therapists over a 17-month span. I've paid close attention to certain people who talked about, how there's certainly athletes talk about the number of massage therapists they've had. I haven't heard any athletes say more than 5 over the course of their career and even to present day. 66? Now, of course, we don't know if he assaulted all 66 or whatever number of the 66, we don't know that. There's a long, long way to go with the legal process of this. which is another reason why the NFL has to go ahead and dock him for the year. Now, indefinite suspension, this would be huge for the NFL because now this isn't the death sentence. This isn't banning Deshaun Watson from the NFL. Of course, they could bring him back in, a year from now, 2 years from now, who knows? But even by that point, Deshaun won't have played in a year or 2 years or 3 years, which points to another point that I wanted to address. And I kind of touched on this on social media the other day. This is the most Cleveland Browns Jimmy Haslam moment that I can remember. Because a guy, and by the way, let's not act like, in fairness to the Browns, let's not act like they were the only team that pursued Deshaun. The Falcons, the Panthers, the Saints, the Dolphins, those other 4 teams were linked to Deshaun once it was settled that we wouldn't have any criminal charges against Deshaun Watson. But the Browns were the team that gave him the highest fully guaranteed contract in NFL history. That didn't go to Aaron Rodgers. It didn't go to Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Joe Burrow. It went to this guy who did not play last season because he was, wanting to force a trade from the Houston Texans. Had he played, I think he would have been suspended last year, maybe 8 games, who knows. But this is a Cleveland Browns franchise. I talk about the Lakers are a desperate franchise and going to try and get Kyrie Irving. This even more so. Okay? Because you've got the quarterback movement that you've got. Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, etc. Carson Wentz even. And then you have this, where the Browns alienate, and I'm not a Baker Mayfield fan, but they alienate Baker Mayfield, who, by all accounts, is going to be better this year than last year. Last year, a lot of his struggles, not giving the injury excuse, because I don't think he's a franchise quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but Baker Mayfield is a guy who's going to come into next season far more healthy than he was in 2021. You've got your guy, for the moment, in-house, right? Because he's in the last year of his rookie contract. The team opted into that last year of his rookie deal, the 5th-year team option that's going to pay him about $19 million. They alienate Baker Mayfield. Trade for Deshaun Watson. Clearly didn't do their research on Deshaun Watson. Had us all fooled. Had me fooled. I'm thinking, okay, the Browns signed Deshaun. Clearly they like what they see, because they're not going to take up upon a guy who's got all this baggage. There was baggage beforehand, but the stuff that's coming out now, adding on to it, this could easily go down as one of the worst contracts, if not the worst contract in NFL history, given the amount of money that the Browns gave one Deshaun Watson and given what's transpired afterwards. And he has not played a single game yet. He has not played an NFL football game since January the 3rd of 2021. It's been a year and a half. So it's probably going to end up being a 2.5 years. So the best Deshaun Watson can hope for is a year, according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, that's what I would do. But the indefinite suspension, I get it. I would. Because and everybody's talking about, well, innocent until proven guilty. We know the justice system. Well, there's 2 things to that. Number one, the NFL, as we know, for better or for worse, in many cases for worse, does not operate in the same way that our justice system does. I always point out, Ezekiel Elliott got 6 games. And there's almost no evidence he did what he did. Greg Hardy got less than that, and we know for a fact he did what he did. Like, the only guy that I can think of that's been suspended indefinitely is Ray Rice. We know, obviously, his career is over. That, it was over a long time ago once he did what he did to his, at the time, girlfriend. And then the second aspect of that, about the innocent until proven guilty thing, is for the Cleveland Browns. Again, why did you not do the research beforehand? Because if the Wall Street Journal knew, the New York Times knew, how do you not know? Why do you piss off your quarterback, your previous quarterback, in the process, to now you kind of need him, and He doesn't want to play for you anymore. By the way, I get it, Baker. I get it. You know, I wouldn't want to play for the Browns either, given how this whole thing has transpired. But this is really bad. Really bad. So the indefinite suspension from the NFL, I get it. And also what it would do is it'd make a strong statement saying, hey, we've changed our ways in that how we butchered some of these suspensions in the past, we're coming down harder now. Because, again, back to the innocent until proven guilty point, the second thing I wanted to address for that is we've never seen anything like this. Superstar players getting in trouble. Yeah, of course we've seen that before. 24? 24. Not 6. Not 10. 24. We've never seen this before. Then the New York Times report comes out. The 24th, by the way, lawsuit filed against Deshaun. You read what this woman's alleging. Holy cow. I can't even repeat what, I could, but this is a family-friendly show. The things that she is accusing, you can't have this guy in the field this season. And in the eyes of the NFL, beyond this season. So it looks like the NFL is actually trying to suspend Watson indefinitely. I don't know anything else that would block that, any legal issues. Again, I'm not the legal expert. I'm going to leave that up to them. But man, oh man, it's a good thing. If there's one good thing the Browns did, it's signing Jacoby Brissett. You guys know I've always been kind of a fan of Jacoby Brissett. I've always said he's in that low-end starter, high-end backup group. You know, if you put, he's the classic quarterback. If you put the right pieces around him, he can win you some games. He can even get you to the playoffs. He came close to doing that with the Colts a few years ago when Andrew Luck unexpectedly retired. So Jacoby Brissett can play. And this is a Browns roster that we know is no joke. It's one of the better, rosters top to bottom on both sides of the football in the NFL. But man, this is, my guy Ryan Flowers, shout out to him. He was all over Deshaun last week. I watched his show. Man. And like he said, what message would the NFL be sending half of its fan base, women, if Deshaun doesn't get a year? Women buy, I think, over half the merchandise in the NFL. So, yeah, this is, to me, the 1-year suspension is a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. But if you go to further, I get it. Given the unprecedented nature of these allegations in their detail and in their volume. We'll see how it plays out. Let's see. John Jones says he has to get a year. Has to. Imagine Deshaun Watson comes back in week 14. He gets a 12-game suspension. I think the Browns have a bye in between, or most of the teams have the bye in between weeks 1 and 13. So Deshaun Watson comes back in week 14. Can you imagine the national reaction? Like, it's going to be, I know a lot of people talk about it, and the guy I'm about to mention obviously is not as good as a quarterback as Deshaun Watson is. But everybody talked about if Colin Kaepernick were to get signed. Like, the distraction that caused the team. It wouldn't be nothing compared to this. Because obviously, does Kaepernick's story, does that extend beyond sports? Of course it does. But with this, this is a little more serious than protesting during an anthem. In case, you haven't noticed. That we've never seen anything like this. So, I'll tell you, today, I know Roger Goodell makes, $50 million a year, more or less. I do not envy him here at all. But yeah, you can't do anything less than a year. And according to the Wall Street Journal, it looks like that's about what's going to be, if not more. And I'll say this too. Last thing before we move on to Russell Westbrook and Skip Bayless feuding. Deshaun has been really blasé about this on social media. You noticed? He's and look, is he trying to put off this thing that he's innocent? Okay, fine. But posting rap lyrics basically referencing the Wall Street Journal as a blog. Like, this isn't Joe Schmo in his basement putting this out. The New York Times is about as credible a news source as you can get. So he's been really weird about this on social media. I have noticed that. But again, we'll see how it plays out. Moving on now. Gosh, I get a kick out of this story. Back to the NBA, back to the Lakers. I told you we would not talk about the Lakers on this show until the playoffs were over, unless there was a genuine, major story. Darvin Ham being hired was one. That was it. We talked about LeBron, but we didn't talk about the Lakers. So let's talk about the Lakers again. Russell Westbrook. Let's go back to Russ. So, I would say there is no one. Okay, sorry. Outside of Stephen A. Smith, the great Stephen A. Smith, there is no one in sports journalism more well-known than Skip Bayless. I think we all, for the most part, agree with that. There's some big voices we all know. Bill Simmons, Nick Wright, Colin Cowherd, Mike Greenberg, Jalen Rose. Outside of Stephen A. Smith, and once upon a time, years ago, these two were debate partners on ESPN First Take. And we know Skip Bayless. He has some strong opinions. He's made a career off of hating on one of the greatest athletes in the history of team sports, LeBron James. But okay, all right. Before we move on, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut this off. Before we talk about Skip and Russ, we have a major story. We just talked about Kyrie Irving. It just broke. Okay, so let's hold on. Got to get this. Got to get this up here. Hold on. This is a major one because again, we were talking about Kyrie Irving, whether or not he would, opt in, opt out of his current contract. This is big. So according to Shams Charania, Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving is opting into his $37 million player option for the 2022 through 23 season, according to The Athletic. Irving is bypassing on multiple opt-in and trade scenarios to fulfill his 4-year commitment to the Nets and Kevin Durant. Okay, so Kyrie is staying. Kyrie Irving is staying in Brooklyn. All right. So, this is big because, again, we talked about it. I felt like it was the most likely scenario was the Nets getting, was the Lakers getting Kyrie Irving and basically trading problems with the Lakers. But there you go. And Kyrie has commented on this. He said, quote, this is again, according to Shams Charania, Kyrie Irving, quote, normal people keep the world going, but those who dare to be different lead us into tomorrow. I've made my decision to opt in. See you in the fall. And signed, basically gave his signature. So Kyrie is staying in Brooklyn this year. That is a big, big story. So we've got kind of our first bombshell story of free agency. Kyrie Irving is staying with the Brooklyn Nets. He is opting into the last year of his contract, which is going to pay him $37 million. So Lakers fans, you're still stuck with Russ. I'm sorry to tell you. But it isn't like you would have had a much better scenario. So there we go. All right. Kyrie staying in Brooklyn. So that takes one big domino off the free agent market. So now I guess the biggest story now is Bradley Beal. And this is also great news for Nets fans because it means Kevin Durant is thus going to stay in Brooklyn. Now, Kyrie is likely, I don't think he can sign an extension. Maybe he can. I don't think he can sign an extension this summer. But he can leave next year in free agency, so we'll see what happens. But what it also goes to show you, too, is that the Nets front office is really flimsy. Because remember when Kyrie, remember when Kyrie Irving initially said, "Okay, I'm not getting vaccinated with the New York State law, about the vaccine mandate," and so Kyrie said, "No, I'm going to stand up for the voiceless." Blah 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 blah. And the Nets say, "Okay, because you can't play home games, we also say you're not going to be able to play road games." And so they stay consistent on that for about 2 months, and then. Okay, fine, Kyrie, you can play road games. You can. And so they keep moving and moving. And Kyrie knows Kyrie ain't moving off his position. That's one thing we know about Kyrie Irving. The man stays consistent. When he says something, that dude stands by it. He does. The Nets did not. And you had, was it Sean Marks, the GM of the team, say about a month ago, say we want guys that are here full time and care about basketball and are fully committed. And then Kyrie Irving's coming back. But we'll see. Again, though, he still could be traded, but according to Kyrie, he says, I see y'all in the fall. I'm playing basketball for the Brooklyn Nets this season. So we get at least one more year of the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving experience, which has won one playoff series in 3 years. All right. Let me check, make sure we don't have any more information. Okay. Okay, so that's all we got. Kyrie staying in Brooklyn. Okay, so back to our originally scheduled programming. This is what I love about free agency, man, because you interrupt the show, a breaking news story comes. I love breaking stories in the show. It's a blast. Okay, it's fitting that we're actually talking about Russell Westbrook right now. So again, we know Skip Bayless is a man who has very strong opinions. One thing I've always respected Skip is that, when it comes to his research and preparation, the guy's second to none. Whether I agree or in most cases strongly disagree with the arguments that he's making, the man does his homework. And he has famously, even ever since the OKC days, not been a huge fan of Russell Westbrook. He has famously dubbed him Russell West Brick. Of course, in reference to the numerous bricked shots that Russell Westbrook fires off because he's a terrible shooter. But Skip Bayless, during the draft, the Lakers, again, traded into the second round. It was their only draft pick of the night. And with the 35th pick, they took Max Christie out of Michigan State. Now, Max Christie isn't a great shooter. Nice player. I think it's a good addition for the Lakers. But Skip tweeted, quote, Lakers acquire a second-round pick. Take Michigan State's Max Christie, who shot only 32% from three last season. Perfect. He'll fit right in with LeBron and Westbrook. Well, Westbrook didn't take too kindly to that. He retweeted, quote, yo, watch your mouth. Don't say anything here you wouldn't say to my face. Now, there's a few things to break down here. Number one, we know about the numerous fans throughout Russell Westbrook's career, especially over the last few years, that have been, and I'm not a Westbrook guy, but absolute jerks. That's the nicest way I can put it. Right? We know last year the idiot dumped popcorn on Russ in Philadelphia. You've had numerous other, guys yelling racial slurs in Utah. We know that the fans don't have a good history with Russell Westbrook, and more times than not, I would say just about every time, Russell is in the right. And so I think the mistake that Russell Westbrook is making here, there's a number of them, but one of them is that, and I'm not necessarily faulting him for this, but I think he's mistaking Skip Bayless as one of these idiots who throw stuff on players. Because as I've said on the show, I've ranted on these people saying, look, there's no way you'd walk up to Russell Westbrook and dump popcorn in his head. There's no way you would do that because we know what the outcome would be following that incident. But Skip, I saw a clip from 2010, 2011. He had some sort of, I forgot what it was. It was some sort of harsh nickname for Chris Bosh. Of the Raptors and the Miami Heat back in the day with the Heatles with LeBron and Dwayne Wade. Skip had some kind of nickname for Chris Bosh, and Chris came on it involved Chris Bosh's last name. I forgot what it was. I wish I could remember. But Chris Bosh came on First Take, which Skip was on at the time, and he explained to Skip, very professionally, very respectfully, I don't appreciate you. He said, I got no problem with booing and nicknames and all that, but don't use my last name that I'm proud of and that my family's proud of. And Skip basically said in response, I respect you, I respect your family, but I do not regret calling you whatever it was. So Skip is the type of dude that would say it to your face. He is. I'm not a big nickname guy here. I don't do that. I think there was, somebody in power recently who did that a lot to people, and I tried to, not be as like that person as much as possible. But this is a whole different guy that we're dealing with. But the bigger issue I have with Russell Westbrook here is, and what's one of the issues I've always had with Russ, he is so thin-skinned. We talk about his old partner in crime, Kevin Durant, being thin-skinned. But I'd say, and this is not to defend KD, because I've criticized him in some of his Twitter activity in the past, and I do respect KD as not using burners anymore. That we know of. But I'd say about 40-50% of KD's responses to average Twitter users, they're all in good fun. Now, some of them aren't, but some of them are like, man, stupid, blankety blank, you don't know nothing about basketball, blah, blah, blah. Some of it's all in good fun. Or he'll crack a joke here and there. Russell, it's not. We know, kind of rigid. Again, very thin-skinned, does not like to be criticizing. Who does? But the great ones, Steph Curry, a fellow point guard in the NBA with Russell Westbrook. A lot of things been said about Steph these last 3 years. A lot of things, including many by Skip Bayless. Steph did not say a word until the Warriors won the championship. And then he went all out. He went all out. Draymond did a podcast yesterday. He was calling out Skip. He was calling out Nick Wright. He was calling out Kendrick Perkins, Bill Simmons, Brian Windhorst. I didn't like that he went at Brian Windhorst. That's my guy. I love Brian Windhorst. I didn't like he went at him. But Draymond's going at everybody. Clay's going at everybody. So is Iguodala. I mean, they're all going at the whole media. Why? They're the champions. I got every right to. I always said, if somebody says you can't do something, you do it, have at it. Like with Paul George. I was on the pandemic P train with Paul George back in the day. And you know what Paul George did last playoffs? Carried the Clippers to the Western Conference Finals when Kawhi Leonard went down. Earn my respect. No more pandemic P slander over here. At least on this show. But man, this guy. Who gives a what that guy on that network says? Who cares? Okay, it's the same guy that said LeBron James is the 9th greatest player ever. Don't listen to that. LeBron James, there has been no man criticized more by any quote-unquote expert in sports history than LeBron James with Skip Bayless since the day that man walked into the NBA at 18 years old in 2003. He has been criticized non-stop by Skip. Has not addressed the man once. I have not heard LeBron James say the words Skip or Skip Bayless. I have never heard him say that. So Russell's responding, and Russell has accomplished a quarter of what LeBron's accomplished in the NBA. I'm close. So how about you go work on your jump shot? John commented here, yes, and we talked about this right when the story broke that Kyrie had just opted into his contract. He also says, Damien Perez says KD to the Blazers. Well, we saw another Damien Lillard of the Portland Trailblazers. Basically, it looked like he kind of recruited Kevin Durant to join Portland. He posted, I don't have the graphic with me, but he posted the picture, obviously the Photoshop picture of him and KD in Blazers jerseys. And that would be great. I'd be thrilled for Portland fans because the Blazers drafted, of course, they famously drafted, Greg Oden out of Ohio State, number 1 overall. And Kevin Durant goes the very next pick to the Seattle Supersonics, soon to become the Oklahoma City Thunder. And it's like, man, it's one of the bigger draft mistakes in history. If it weren't for that number 23 in Chicago, it'd have been the biggest mistake that the Blazers ever made in their draft history, not selecting Kevin Durant in 2007. I say no, because Kyrie has opted into his deal now. But had Kyrie not, I wouldn't rule anything out. Because Portland's made some moves in the offseason. They got Jeremy Grant. I thought they had a solid draft. I really like Chauncey Billups as a head coach. Damien's going to come back healthy. Looks like he's committed to playing for Portland, at least this season. So we'll see where they go. We know Damien is crazy loyal to the great city of Portland. Okay, so this says, and Woj, by the way, about the Kyrie Irving story. Woj just tweeted that, quote, without the ability to find a sign and trade deal, Kyrie Irving plans to exercise his $36 million player option, blah, 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 and return to the Nets. Without the ability to find a sign and trade deal. See, this is why you want to let stories kind of develop over the course of 20 minutes. Because again, Sham's report with the initial report, we talked about it as it happened on this show, and then Woj said without the ability to find a sign and trade deal. And I talked about earlier in the show with the Lakers, were the only team interested in getting Kyrie Irving. The problem is they didn't have any assets. So this makes sense coming from the two best insiders in the game, Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania. Damien Perez asks, should John Wall go to the Clippers? Well, they need a point guard. I think Reggie Jackson is better coming off the bench. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George are coming back. I'll tell you this about the Clippers. I think that they are the number one threat in the West next year to my Warriors. I think it goes in the West, Warriors, Clippers, Nuggets, Grizzlies. I think Denver's going to be a problem with Jamal Murray coming back. The only thing I worry about, Damien, if John Wall ends up getting traded to the Clippers is A, they're going to have to give up depth, and B, that contract. Whew. We talk about Russ as a bad contract. At least Russ has played. He hasn't played well, but the guy's been available these last few years. John Wall's missed the last 2 seasons, just about. I think 2 of the last 3 seasons, and he missed a lot of the 1 season he did play a couple of years back due to numerous injuries. So you'd have 3 guys making, I think, in excess of $40 million in Kawhi, Paul George, and John Wall. And you'd have to give up assets to get John Wall. I don't know if that would work. Unless John Wall was bought out by the Houston Rockets, and I can't anticipate that happening. I don't know. I think John Wall ends up getting traded to a fringe playoff team. I hate the guy has lost a ton of his explosiveness due to these injuries. That contract. If John Wall was making like 20, 25, heck, like $28 million, I think it'd be a solid deal for the Clippers. Because one thing about the Clippers, we know this with Ty Lue. Ty Lue, as good as any coach in the NBA, gets the most out of what he's got. I mean, remember just a year ago, they're playing Game 6 against the Utah Jazz, and Terrence Mann goes off. How many scored? 38, 39 points. Terrence Mann. That's Ty Lue's good at that. He gets the best out of what he's got. But this is going to be interesting to see how this further plays out. This comes from Bobby Marks. I'm not sure if Bobby Marks is related to Sean Marks. Bobby was a GM in the NBA, and he's with ESPN now. He tweeted that Kyrie is eligible to sign an extension up until June 30th with Brooklyn or enter 2023 as an unrestricted free agent. By opting in, Irving is eligible to be traded to any of the 29 teams, and the hard cap restriction does not apply. Okay, so we're going to know even more about Kyrie by Thursday because he can still sign an extension. Now, I'd be pretty surprised if he signed it. Let me rephrase that. I'd be even more surprised if the Nets offer it. Because given how last season played out, the vaccine thing, which pretty much derailed their season, the James Harden drama, I mean, it was a mess. No wonder they got knocked out in the first round via sweep. So I would be shocked if Kyrie is extended by the Nets before Thursday's deadline. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Okay, so again, Kyrie, once again, is staying with the Brooklyn Nets, opting into his player option. And so, for the moment, we're going to get at least one more season of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and a little Ben Simmons if he plays, which he's a whole nother situation unto himself. Ben, y'all know Ben Simmons is one of my least favorite players in the NBA because not because of the money and all that. I want guys to get paid. I love when guys get paid. But the fact that this guy came into the NBA with literally one deficiency, with one weakness in his game. Good at everything else. Great defensively, great rebounder, long, quick, great passer, great ball handler, can manage an offense, can run an offense, can guard your best player 1 through 5. Can't shoot. It's fine. You know how many players that were drafted this past Thursday can't shoot? That's nothing wrong with that. They're young players. But the fact that he has not worked on his shot, refuses to shoot, drives me crazy. Drives me crazy. And the fact that it doesn't look like this guy cares that much about basketball to begin with. And we know how last season, or before Game 4, he basically backed out of Game 4 against the Boston Celtics when it was reported weeks ago he's going to play Game 4 against the Boston Celtics. Well, Game 4 of their first-round series, and he says no. But it's Ben Simmons for you. So I'm sure we'll be talking a lot of Brooklyn Nets this season. Quickly, before I move on to what I've really been looking forward to talk about today, my top 10 players in the NBA. Before I get to that, Rob Gronkowski retired last week. This is his second retirement, and he's retired from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after 2 seasons there. Obviously, we all know he came to Tampa Bay to join his buddy Tom Brady, and the retirement itself didn't shock me because, and I said on the show, I think my man Grady Edwards, shout out to Grady, he's in the comments a lot, and he asked on the show, do you think, is it Gronk coming back? And I said, I think if Gronk does come back, then it's going to be like late season with Tampa Bay. But as it stands right now, he's retired. I don't think he's done. I think he's only got one more year left in him, or really half a year. But I think we have not seen the last of Gronk in the NFL. Because according to Drew Rosenhaus, kind of a celebrity agent, big personality, we know who Drew is. He was once Antonio Brown's agent. He said shortly after Gronk posted his second retirement announcement on social media, Drew Rosenhaus told ESPN, quote, that he wouldn't be surprised to see his client return, to Tampa Bay if Tom Brady comes calling. Now, it was funny because Tom Brady retweeted what I just read and put like a GIF of somebody picking, or I think it was just a picture of somebody on the phone. And so, Tom's making light of it, but I'm sure we get to November. Maybe Tampa's had some injuries. If the tight end position, remember, O.J. Howard's gone now. Cameron Brate, we remember last season when Tampa had all those injuries at wide receiver, they had to make Cameron Brate play wide receiver. They had to, slide him in as their slot guy because so many dudes went down. Obviously, we had the, AB literally running away from the Tampa Bay organization. You had Chris Godwin tearing his ACL. You had a number of injuries. Scotty Miller was playing at 60%. Mike Evans was about all they had. And so they had to slide Cameron Brate as the slot receiver against the Rams. Almost won the game. So I could see if they have injuries, and again, knock on wood that nobody gets hurt, Tom calls Gronk like, hey, man, one more run, and you and I can hold hands and run into the sunset and do our fun YouTube videos, outside of the Tampa Bay practice facility, right? So I think Gronk's coming back. I think he comes back this November, right before Thanksgiving, for one last home stretch run to try and help the Buccaneers win another Super Bowl, to help his buddy Tom Brady win his 8th Super Bowl. And for Gronk, it'd be a fifth Super Bowl. I think he's coming back. I really do. But I know there's been the debate in the last week, is Gronk the greatest tight end ever? I don't think so. I think Tony Gonzalez is the greatest tight end to ever play. Because the thing about Tony is whether he was playing with a star quarterback, a good quarterback, or a backup, production didn't change. And so, the fact that he's second in so many receiving numbers to Jerry Rice as a tight end speaks to how great Tony was. I would go in this order. I would go Gonzalez. I'd probably go Gronk second. Shannon Sharp third. Jason Witten fourth. I don't know who put fifth. I don't know. We may have to do the Mount Rushmore of tight ends, but I guess I just gave him a Mount Rushmore. That's my Mount Rushmore. It's Gonzalez, Gronk, Jason Witten, Shannon Sharp. That's my Mount Rushmore. It's my opinion. There's been so many great. Antonio Gates was phenomenal. I mean, there's been a lot of great players to play that position, but I give Gonzalez the edge over Gronk. But Gronk's in the Mount Rushmore, no doubt about it. I mean, because when this guy was in his prime, he's almost like Shaq in some ways. Because I mean, there's nothing you could do to stop him. If you double team, he's just going to bully his way. He's an excellent route runner. He's very quick on his feet. Didn't get enough credit. Everybody remembers Gronk, kind of lumbering down the sideline. But the dude was quick on his feet. Early in his career, he could kind of make you miss. Now, as that ability waned, the injuries mounted. He really was at a low point around 2017, 2018. That's why he retired the first time and came back, had a year off, got his body right, came back with his buddy Tom in beautiful, sunny Tampa, Florida, and was productive. Wasn't prime Gronk by any stretch, but was extremely productive. Huge in the Super Bowl win against Kansas City. But I think Gronk's coming back in November. Okay. I look forward to doing this every offseason. And I did this right before the playoffs, the NBA playoffs, about 2.5 months ago in April. I think I did this either before the play-in tournament, after the play-in tournament, mid-April. And I listed my top 10 current players in the NBA. And I said when I made the list at the time, this list is going to change in 2.5 months because we know about legacies. They change come playoff time. Guys drop, guys go up, and we see what's your impact on winning, how great are you in the biggest games, what's your impact on both ends of the floor, what can you do on both ends of the floor. I think leadership matters as well. Again, winning playoff series. So my list today looks different than my top 10 2.5 months ago. So, but you may be asking, what's your list from 2.5 months ago? Here's what it was. 1 through 10 in order from the top to the bottom. These were my top 10 players in the NBA before the playoffs started. Giannis, Steph, Durant, Embiid, LeBron, Luka, Kawhi, Jokic, Lillard, Ja. That was my top 10. Now, again, obviously not all these guys made the playoffs. You see LeBron in here, Kawhi, and Damien Lillard. But I said, currently, right now, these are the 10 best. That list has, of course, changed. And so, now that my Golden State Warriors are the 2022 NBA champions, in case I forgot to tell you that, here are my top 10 players in the NBA right now. Starting with number 10, right now, of my top 10 players in the NBA currently, it is my man, Damian Lillard of the Portland Trailblazers. Now, you may say, come on, Dame played how many games? 20-something games this season? Portland didn't sniff the playoffs. He's injured. He's 31. I get it. I get why one would be skeptical. But all I would say about Damian Lillard is this. The last time we saw this man healthy, he was doing Dame time things, okay? He was averaging 29 a game. Who could forget that first-round series against the Denver Nuggets, that Game 5 when he dropped double nickel. He pulled a Michael Jordan. Double nickel, 55 points. Broke my man Klay Thompson's record for the most threes ever hit in a playoff game with 12. He was hitting turnaround threes off the dribble from darn near half court over guys. This dude, listen, we get a little bit, we get, kind of biased, recency bias, but this guy, he's going to remind some people this season. I don't know if Portland's going to have a ton of success given how their offseason, shakes out from here. They made some solid moves, but they're not a contender quite yet. But Damian Lillard this year is going to remind y'all, he's still that dude. He's still in his prime, and he still can be the best player in a championship team, even if that's not going to be in Portland. He's my number 8. Number 9, staying on the West Coast, my 9th best player currently in the NBA, Nicola Jokic, the 2-time MVP, back-to-back MVP, much to my chagrin because I don't think he deserved either, but that's neither here nor there. But with that said, the man is a phenomenal basketball player, okay? This season averaged 27, 14, and 8. He is the greatest passing big man that we have ever seen since maybe Wilt. And I've always said it, if you were mentioning a player in any conversation, statistically, strictly statistically, with Wilt Chamberlain, you're doing something right. And when you talk about a guy who's 7 feet tall, plays center, and can literally run your offense, that's rare. He's got a beautiful hook shot inside. Again, the 14 rebounds. He actually had more rebounds than the guy I thought was above him in the MVP race, Joel Embiid. He had 14 to Embiid's 11. But he had a phenomenal season last year. Should not have been MVP, I want to reiterate. But he is, without a question, in that discussion to be the best big in basketball. And he's durable, too. That's the one thing I'll give him over Joel. He's available more often. And so Nicola Jokic is at number 9 for me. Number 8, and this is probably going to be the most controversial on my list, my 8th best player in the NBA is Jason Tatum. Now, I know Jason Tatum had a bad NBA Finals. No way to get around that. If the Boston Celtics had beaten my Warriors and won the championship, Jaylen Brown would have been the MVP. I've always said about Jason Tatum, he is a number 1 with number 2 intangibles. With that said, 11 days removed from the last game of these finals, Jason Tatum had a heck of a postseason. Swept Kevin Durant and outplayed him in all 4 games. Played phenomenal defense on KD. He did something that I didn't think was possible. Stopping KD. I thought the best you could hope for is maybe limiting the guy. And even if you did that, somebody else is going to go off. No. He got in KD's head. KD was a little tentative on the jump shots. Jason Tatum did that as the primary defender on Kevin Durant. He plays Giannis Antetokounmpo in the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks of the second round. I get there's no Chris Middleton. If there is a Middleton, the Bucks would have played my Warriors in the finals. But with that said, down 3 games to 2, on the road, in the champ's house, he goes for 46 to force a Game 7, which the Celtics won in blowout fashion. If Jason Tatum doesn't have the greatest game of his career, Boston doesn't even get to the Eastern Conference Finals. They do. Of course, they beat Miami, got to the finals, played my Warriors. He did not play well. And I have concerns about his mentality. I know he trained with the late, great Kobe Bryant, and he's got the 24 armband, that he wears, the purple armband with number 24. I don't see the Mamba mentality in Jason Tatum. With that said, I can't with a straight face say that there are absolutely 10 basketball players better than Jason Tatum. He's my number 8. Number 7 on this list, the guy who I thought could have possibly been the MVP. I would have voted him second behind Giannis. I believe he did finish second. Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, in my view, the best big man in basketball, led the NBA in scoring. That has not been done by a center since Shaquille O'Neal. Averaged 11 rebounds as well. You're talking about a guy who, when he is healthy, and these days that has become a big if, or really since the start of his career that's been a big if. But when Joel Embiid is healthy, he is a force of nature. Can get to the basket, can shoot the 3, but we've seen in recent years, maybe a little bit of Doc Rivers has influenced this a little bit, but when he gets his butt down low on the block, there is nothing you can do to stop him. He can back it down and dunk it on your head. He's got a nice little turnaround shot. He's got a great fadeaway. He is a monster defensively. I mean, this guy is as good as it gets. He is the only big in this league that I believe can be the best player in a championship team, even over Nicola Jokic. He is at number 7 for me. The only concerns I have with Joel Embiid, he has not been great in the postseason. It's been for a number of factors. He's gotten sick in the past, physical injuries, but I haven't seen the Joel Embiid in the regular season that I see in the postseason. So he's going to need to improve that. So, Joel Embiid's number 7. Number 6, maybe as controversial, even more so, than my Jason Tatum ranking. At number 6, who do I have? I have Kevin Durant as my 6th best basketball player on the planet. This is a guy who could have very easily made the case just a couple of years ago that he is the king of all, that he is the best player on the planet. But I can't do that. Not with a guy who got swept in the first round by a Jason Tatum who is not better than him, who did not have a good game in the series. That's the thing. Kevin Durant didn't just get swept. Great players have been swept before and put up great performances. LeBron got swept by the Warriors in 2018 in the finals. He scored 51 one game. Okay? Kevin Durant not only got swept, but was awful. Shot sub 40% from the field and from three. Was not his normal self. His regular season average is 30 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. 6 assists, by the way, was a career high. Did not hold up whatsoever in the postseason. He was inefficient. He was tentative, bad defensively. In a big game 3 against the Boston Celtics, he took like 3-4 shots in the fourth quarter, was not aggressive. Celtics got in his head. That demotes him on my list. But with that said, as I said at the beginning of the show, he's the most gifted scorer I've ever seen. Never seen anything like Kevin Durant. 7 feet, crossover, can shoot over you in the mid-range, got a great turnaround jumper, can get to the line. He's about 88% from the free throw line. Can get to the rim, dunk on your head. He's got a nice layup package. He got some jelly in there. And can shoot it from just inside of Steph Curry range, his former teammate. Kevin Durant is that dude. He is a beast when it comes to scoring the basketball, and he's really good defensively. I demoted him to 6 because I did not see that in the first round against the Boston Celtics. And we know, like I said earlier, postseasons is where it really matters. At number 5, a guy that we did not see the entire season, Kawhi Leonard. Now, Kawhi Leonard, when do we know about him? Well, we know that he's a 2-time finals MVP with 2 different teams. That's only been done by LeBron James and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We know about Kawhi Leonard that when he's healthy, he is probably still the best two-way player in basketball, can take the best wing for either team, and in some cases the big, scores as effortlessly in the mid-range as anybody we've ever seen outside of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. The thing I worry about with Kawhi is does he have leadership intangibles? Well, with the Clippers, as was the case with the Spurs and Raptors, didn't have to. Doesn't have to. And so, when he was healthy, do we remember what he was doing in the postseason against the Mavericks and against the Jazz in the second round before he tore his ACL? Cooking them. Scoring 30, in some cases 40, efficient. He had that one game 6 against the Dallas Mavericks where he literally could not miss in the fourth quarter. This guy is clutch. This guy is a great scorer in the mid-range and can get to the basket. Good free throw shooter, clutch free throw shooter. Kawhi Leonard, while he doesn't get a ton of teammates involved, this guy is no joke. They don't call him the Claw for no reason, okay? Those big hands, defensively and offensively, come to his advantage. At number 4, I've got a guy who made a pretty surprising playoff run this season, Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic has moved up from my list. I had him at number 6 before the playoffs. I have him at number 4 now, because this is somebody who darn near averaged a triple-double in the regular season, but also in the playoffs. Played excellent against the Utah Jazz when he was not fully healthy. And remember, he had a big ankle injury before the playoffs started. Came back in Game 4 and was excellent. That Game 5 was ridiculous. And in the second round against the Phoenix Suns, everybody picked Phoenix. I said Phoenix would win in 7. It'd be a tough series. But not only does Dallas beat Phoenix, but led by Luka, they messed Phoenix up mentally. Chris Paul got tight. Devin Booker got tight. In some cases, I thought Monty Williams got tight, as did the bench. So, when you look at how this all played out, Luka Doncic messed with them guys. Now, he had a subpar Western Conference Finals against my Warriors, but of course he did. Andrew Wiggins was guarding him. Andrew Wiggins shut down Tatum. He shut down Luka. He gave all kinds of problems to Grizzlies and Nuggets players the previous 2 rounds, and he ran out of gas. So Luka has got to get better defensively. He's got to get better on that end of the floor. But offensively, he's one of the 3 best scorers in basketball. And we know, as some of the old-timers will sell you, basketball at the end of the day is putting the ball in the hoop. And not many guys can do it better than Luka Doncic. At number 3, the guy who is constant, his supporters certainly have made the claim. He himself has made the claim that he is the greatest basketball player of all time. I am, of course, talking about LeBron James. Now, I had LeBron at 5. I moved him up to 3. You say, why the heck did you move him up to 3 when he didn't play a single playoff game? Well, because the 2 guys I had him above him, Durant and Embiid, were subpar in the postseason. So that automatically moves LeBron up to number 3. Listen, this is a guy who, had he played enough games, would have led the league in scoring. We know he can get teammates involved as much as anybody. He can still ball out in the defensive end of the floor. and when it's all said and done, even at this stage of his career, not as much as he used to, but even at this stage of his career, can take subpar talent, as long as Russell Westbrook isn't in the way, and make them a perennial playoff team. I said playoff team because the Lakers ain't sniffing no championship as currently constructed. But in terms of all-around basketball player, I'm not sure there's anyone really better right now. But he's past his prime. Still scored at a high level. LeBron James, still, I don't think there's a question, is one of the 3 best basketball players on the planet. At number 2, last year's Finals MVP, my man, Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Greek Freak, the 2-time MVP, the 1-time Defensive Player of the Year, and the 1-time Finals MVP. People forget what this guy was doing in the postseason with the Milwaukee Bucks against the Boston Celtics. This guy, Giannis Antetokounmpo, against the Boston Celtics was putting up ridiculous numbers. He scored like 400 points or something crazy in the playoffs. I mean, he was just putting up unbelievable numbers. Unstoppable inside. Can get teammates involved. Averages about 5 or 6 assists a game as a 6'11 ball-dominant wing. We know he averages double-digit rebounds every year. He is as relentless as any player in basketball. Probably is at the top of that list. We've never seen anything quite like this guy. Now, his deficiencies, he's not a great shooter. He's improved that over the course of his career, but he's not great in that department. But Giannis is the exception to my rule that you can't be a superstar if you can't shoot. Giannis is the exception to that because he's the most dominant player within 5 feet of the basket since Shaq. The numbers back it up. What you see backs it up. Giannis, at the end of the day, with an undermanned team, without Chris Middleton, without a true point guard, almost beat the Boston Celtics, who got to the NBA Finals. This dude is something else, and I think Milwaukee is going to be a major problem this season in the Eastern Conference. Giannis is at number 2. So what does that mean? Y'all know who number 1 is. Wardell Stephen Curry II out of Davidson, who just had, we know, a phenomenal finals. Deserved, finals MVP, of course. I mean, I told you before the season started he'd be the finals MVP, but that's neither here nor there. But what Steph Curry just did this season, in terms of accomplishments, in terms of awards and things of that nature, is quite unprecedented. Okay? This is somebody, again, they put him on the All-NBA 75 team. Deservedly so. Nobody will argue with that. This season alone, his accolades, All-NBA 75 team, broke Ray Allen's three-point record in barely over half the games that Ray Allen played. We know the man changed the game. Kobe Bryant All-Star MVP because he scored 50 in the All-Star game. He won the first ever Magic Johnson Western Conference Finals MVP trophy. He won a championship, and finally, way overdue, because he got robbed twice in 2015 and 2018, won the Finals MVP. And you saw what that it meant to that man. He was crying, and once the tears shed, he has been wilding these last 2 weeks. I mean, he's been all over the place. We're seeing the night-night celebrations all over sports. That originated from that man, because they don't call him the babyface assassin for no reason. He is a killer when he gets it going. There is no more dangerous player in basketball that when they get going, there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. Because he's built his body well these last few years. He's put on about 10 pounds or so of muscle. He can finish in the paint as well as anybody at his size. Heck, just in general, we know he's the greatest shooter ever. He, in my view, is the second greatest ball handler ever to Kyrie Irving. Is an efficient scorer in the mid-range. Is a 90% shooter at the free throw line, although he did struggle at the free throw line in the postseason. I said on February 21st, the day after he won the Kobe Bryant All-Star MVP, that this guy, when this season is over, I said this back in February, is going to be the best player on the planet. And that's where he's at. So, recapping my top 10, I'll do it in order. Number 10, Damien Lillard. Number 9, Nicola Jokic. Number 8, Jason Tatum. Number 7, Joel Embiid. Number 6, Kevin Durant. Number 5, Number 5, Kawhi Leonard. Number 4, Luka Doncic. Number 3, LeBron James. Number 2, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And number 1, Steph Curry. That's my top 10 currently in the NBA. That's where I got it. By the way, I forgot to say congratulations to some other champions. Again, my Warriors are the 2022 NBA champions. I'm repping the hat, the T-shirt. But there's some new champions as well. The Stanley Cup champions, the Colorado Avalanche, beat the, at the time, two-time defending champion Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals in 6 games. Or, I'm sorry, Stanley Cup Final. It's final, not finals, in 6 games. So congrats to the Avalanche. I believe this season that they were the preseason favorite to win. And I saw like they were like one of only 5 Stanley Cup champions to be the preseason favorite and win the same year. So congrats to those guys. It's been a good year for my favorite, or I shouldn't say my favorite, one of my favorite owners in sports, Stan Kroenke. The Rams won the Super Bowl and the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup. So congrats to them. Congrats to my man, Stan Kroenke. And that's the end of today's show. We had a lot to talk about. You had the Kyrie Irving news broke during today's show. He is coming back to Brooklyn. He has opted into his player deal, so we will get one more year of drama with Kyrie and the Nets. I don't anticipate he'll sign an extension before Thursday's deadline, but we'll see you on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter. It's going to be crazy because that's when free agency starts. So be sure to tune in then. We'll have a ton to talk about in that department. And also be sure to go catch the Carving Up podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, as well as and Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. So until Thursday, hope everybody has a great week. Continue to stay safe out there, please. God bless you all. Peace out. Tomorrow's my birthday. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.